There are bad neighbors. And then there's Karen. I had dealt with HOA nonsense before. Pointless fines, nitpicking over trash bins, and ridiculous rules about mailbox colors. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened that day, because when I got home, my car was gone. The vanishing act. I pulled into my driveway after a long day at work, only to find an empty space where my car should have been. I blinked. Did I park somewhere else? No. I always parked in my own driveway, where it had been for years without an issue. But now, gone. I looked around, confused, when I spotted Karen, the HOA president, standing across the street, arms crossed, smirking. I felt a wave of irritation. "Karen," I called out, walking toward her, "do you know what happened to my car?" Her smirk widened. "Oh, I know exactly what happened. The power trip." She reached into her purse, pulled out a clipboard, and held it up, like some kind of court decree. "Your vehicle was an eyesore," she said, feigning mock sympathy. "I had it towed this morning." I froze. "You what?" Karen sighed dramatically. "You left it sitting in your driveway for too long. It was ruining the aesthetic of our community." Stared at her. "Karen, it's my own driveway. You can't just tow my car." She tilted her head as if she was speaking to a child. "Actually, I can. As HOA president, it's my job to enforce community standards. And that car, it was dragging down property values." I could feel my blood boiling. "My car was parked legally," I snapped. "There's nothing in the HOA bylaws about driveway parking." Karen waved her clipboard dismissively. "Rules evolve. And besides, I have the authority to maintain neighborhood order." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Where is it?" I demanded. Karen grinned. "Oh, it's at Westside Auto Impound. You'll need to pay the fees to get it back. And a heads up, the longer it sits there, the more expensive it gets." She laughed, like this was a game. The breaking point. I could feel my fists clenching. Karen wasn't just abusing her power, she was stealing from homeowners. This wasn't about rules. It was about control. And if she thought I was going to roll over and let her get away with it, she was dead wrong. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo of her smug face. She frowned. "What are you doing?" I smirked. "Oh, nothing, just gathering evidence, because if you think you're getting away with this..." I leaned in. "You have no idea who you're messing with." Karen's smile wavered. For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes, because she could feel it. This wasn't over. Karen thought she was untouchable. She had illegally towed my car, mocked me to my face, and made it crystal clear that she didn't care about rules, fairness, or reality. But what she didn't know, she had just committed a federal offense, because that wasn't just my car, it belonged to a federal agent. Calling in the big guns, still fuming, I walked back into my house and grabbed my phone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name, Agent David Carter, FBI. I hit call. After 2 rings, his voice came through. "Hey, what's up?" I took a deep breath. "Dave, we have a problem. Karen towed your car." Silence. Then, "She what?" I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Yeah, the HOA president. She had it taken from my driveway because she thought it was lowering property values." More silence, then a low, dangerous chuckle. "Oh, this is going to be fun." Karen's arrogance. About 20 minutes later, I walked back outside. Karen was still there, chatting with a few board members, probably bragging about what she had done. I strolled up, calm as ever. "Hey, Karen," I said casually. "Quick question. Did you happen to check who that car was registered to before you had it towed?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, you're being dramatic. It was an eyesore, and I had every right to remove it." I smirked. "Interesting, because that car, it's federal property." Karen blinked. "What?" I took a step closer. "My cousin's an FBI agent. That was his unmarked government vehicle." Karen froze. One of the board members gasped, but she quickly recovered, waving me off. "Oh, don't be ridiculous. I don't care who your cousin is. That car was ugly, and this is my neighborhood." I just smiled. You might want to tell that to the federal government. And right on cue, the towing company's panic attack. My phone rang. It was West Side Auto Impound. I picked up. Yeah? A frantic voice came through the line. Sir, we just got a call. We didn't know that was a federal vehicle. You need to come get it immediately. I grinned. Oh, I'm not the one you need to worry about. Karen was watching me now, uneasy. I put the call on speaker. Sir, the voice stammered. We'll tow it back for free. No fees, no damage, no questions. We really don't want any trouble. Karen's face paled. I turned to her. See, Karen, when you illegally tow a government vehicle, that's called interfering with federal operations. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. Her entire demeanor shifted. For the first time, she looked scared. The fallout begins. Not 5 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. Agent David Carter stepped out, wearing sunglasses and his FBI badge clipped to his belt. Karen's entire body stiffened. He strolled over, calm and collected. Which one of you is Karen Reynolds? Karen swallowed. I am. Dave took off his sunglasses and smiled. Great. I need to have a little chat with you about stealing federal property. Karen visibly gulped. Because now, this wasn't just an HOA dispute. This was a federal crime, and she was in big trouble. Karen had illegally towed a federal vehicle. She had mocked me, dismissed my warnings, and thought she was untouchable. But now she was standing face to face with the FBI, and she was about to learn just how wrong she was. The black SUVs arrive about. An hour after my cousin, Special Agent David Carter, had confronted Karen, another FBI vehicle pulled up. This time, it wasn't just Dave. 2 additional federal agents stepped out, both in dark suits, badges flashing under the afternoon sun. The entire neighborhood went silent. Homeowners peeked out their windows. A few HOA board members stood frozen, watching their so-called leader get cornered by the feds. Karen? She tried to keep her cool. She stood stiffly, arms crossed, still holding on to her delusions of power. The first agent, Agent Miller, adjusted his tie. Ms. Reynolds, we need to have a conversation regarding an unauthorized seizure of federal property. Karen snorted. Oh, please, this is ridiculous. The second agent, Agent Ramirez, pulled out a document. Ms. Reynolds, this vehicle was government-issued and part of an active federal case. Interfering with it is a federal offense. Karen rolled her eyes. I was simply enforcing HOA policies. That car was ruining the look of our neighborhood, and I had every right to have it towed. Agent Miller raised an eyebrow. Did you personally verify whether the vehicle violated any local, state, or federal laws before ordering the tow? Karen hesitated. For the first time, I saw uncertainty creep into her expression. I don't have to, she stammered. I'm the HOA president. My word is final. Agent Ramirez sighed. That's not how laws work, Ms. Reynolds. HOA guidelines do not override federal jurisdiction. What you did is classified as interference with government property. That alone could lead to serious charges. Karen visibly paled. I could see her, brain scrambling for an excuse. Karen tries to weasel her way out. Karen forced a laugh. Okay, let's not blow this out of proportion. It's just a car. It's already been returned. No harm done, right? Agent Miller didn't smile. This isn't just about the car. It's about your actions. You knowingly had a vehicle towed without verifying its legal status. Then, when confronted, you mocked the rightful owner and dismissed the consequences. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. Ramirez stepped closer. Ms. Reynolds, I suggest you start cooperating. If we determine this was done maliciously, you could be facing criminal charges. The neighborhood watches in shock by now. Nearly half the neighborhood had gathered outside, whispering amongst themselves. Karen, the HOA tyrant who had terrorized them for years, was finally on the receiving end of real consequences. One of the board members, a man named Greg, stepped forward. I just want to clarify, Greg said hesitantly, that the rest of the HOA had no idea Karen was doing this. Karen spun around. "Oh, don't even try to backpedal now," she hissed. "We all agreed that car was a nuisance." Greg raised his hands. "No, you decided that, Karen. The rest of us didn't sign off on towing a federal vehicle." The HOA members murmured in agreement. Karen's face turned red. She realized no one was standing by her. She was alone. The federal warning agent Miller exhaled. "Here's the deal, Ms. Reynolds. You're currently under federal investigation. If we find further evidence that you knowingly and willfully obstructed federal operations, you could be prosecuted." Karen's eyes widened. Wait, you can't be serious." Agent Ramirez gave her a long, cold stare. "We're very serious, Ms. Reynolds. We'll be in contact." Then, without another word, the agents turned and left, leaving Karen standing, there shaking, her smug confidence gone, her iron grip on the neighborhood cracking, and for the first time, she was truly afraid. Because now, this wasn't just an HOA dispute. This was federal, and Karen was in way over her head. Karen had always acted untouchable. For years, she ruled the HOA with an iron fist, terrorizing homeowners with fake violations, fines, and illegal towing. But when she messed with the FBI, her entire world began to unravel. And what we found next proved she was even worse than we thought. The FBI investigation uncovers Karen's past. A week after the federal agents confronted Karen, my cousin, Agent David Carter, called me, his tone serious. "Hey," he said. "You sitting down?" I frowned. "Why?" "Because we just pulled up Karen's background. And, you're going to want to hear this." I sat down. "Karen has done this before." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Dave sighed. "Turns out, this isn't her first HOA power trip. She used to be HOA president in a neighborhood called Pine Valley Estates. I had never heard of it, but what he said next shocked me. She was sued for fraud, power abuse, and illegally trying to seize people's homes. Karen's HOA scandals. As the FBI dug deeper, they uncovered a disturbing pattern in Karen's past. Fake fines and illegal liens. At Pine Valley, Karen had placed fraudulent liens on properties, threatening foreclosure if homeowners didn't pay made-up HOA fees. Towing scams. She had illegally towed multiple cars, just like she did to mine. Extortion and bribes. Some homeowners claimed Karen demanded cash settlements to remove violations she made up. Forgery. She had been accused of falsifying HOA records to maintain control. I was stunned. "How the hell is she still running an HOA?" I asked. Dave chuckled darkly. "Because people never check. She left Pine Valley before the lawsuits hit, moved here, and reinvented herself." But now, I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Now we're bringing it all to light." The emergency HOA meeting word spread fast. By the end of the week, Karen's past was all over the neighborhood. Homeowners who had once feared her were now furious. The HOA board, desperate to save themselves, called an emergency meeting. I showed up, sitting quietly in the back. "Karen?" She looked exhausted. For the first time, nervous. Greg, the board member who had distanced himself from her, stood up. "Based on recent findings," he said, holding up a thick stack of legal documents, "we have proof that Karen Reynolds has a history of fraud, HOA abuse, and illegal enforcement tactics." Murmurs filled the room. Another board member spoke up. "I move that we vote to immediately remove Karen as HOA president." Karen jumped to her feet. "You can't do this," she snapped. "I've given my life to this community." Greg turned to her. "No, Karen, you've spent your life abusing communities." She glared, chest rising and falling. "I'll sue every single one of you." But this time, no one was afraid of her. "All in favor of removing Karen?" Greg said. Hands shot up. 1, 2, 3. Every single hand in the room, except Karen's, her face drained of color. Greg sighed. "Karen, as of now, you are no longer HOA president. You have no authority here. You're done." She shook her head, mouth opening and closing. Then she grabbed her clipboard, stormed toward the door, and shoved it into the trash on her way out. The second the door slammed shut, the entire room burst into quiet celebration. Karen was gone, and the neighborhood was free. Karen had spent years terrorizing the neighborhood. She had fined people for ridiculous reasons, illegally towed cars, threatened homeowners, and even tried to seize property through fraud. But when she crossed the line with the FBI, everything came crashing down. She'd already been fired as HOA president, but now she was about to lose everything. The class action lawsuit. Few days after Karen was officially removed from the HOA, homeowners started coming forward. Some had paid thousands in fake fines. Others had nearly lost their homes due to illegal liens. Many had been bullied, harassed, and threatened for years. Now that Karen was powerless, they weren't afraid anymore. Greg, the HOA board member who helped expose her, took the lead. "We're suing her," he told me one evening. "She didn't just abuse power, she stole from us." And so a class action lawsuit was filed against Karen for fraud, for illegally collecting HOA fines, harassment and abuse of power for years of bullying homeowners. Financial damages for the money she extorted from residents. Karen tried to fight it. She showed up to court, acting as if she was still in control. But when the evidence piled up, fake violation letters she had written, bank statements showing missing HOA funds, testimonies from dozens of homeowners, she broke down. And the verdict? The court ruled against her. Karen was ordered to pay back thousands in damages. Karen loses her home. There was just one problem. Karen didn't have the money. With her reputation destroyed and her job gone, she had no way to pay off the massive financial penalties. And when she couldn't cover the cost, her own home, the house she had used as a symbol of her power, was foreclosed. She had spent years threatening homeowners with eviction. Now, she was the one being forced out. The community celebrates on the day Karen was officially evicted. The neighborhood held a block party. Music was playing, people were laughing. There was a huge barbecue right in front of Karen's old house. And Karen, she stood on the sidewalk, watching movers haul her furniture away. For the first time ever, she was powerless. As she got into her beat-up old car, preparing to drive away forever, she glanced at me, her eyes filled with pure hatred. "You did this," she hissed. I just smirked. "No, Karen," I said, "you did this to yourself." She gritted her teeth, threw the car into drive, and sped off, leaving the neighborhood forever. The final lesson: Karen had spent years believing she was invincible. She thought she could bend the rules, bully people, and never face consequences. But in the end, she lost everything. Because when you abuse power, eventually, power turns against you. And now, the neighborhood was finally free. The end. Or just the beginning. Karen may be gone. But if this story has taught me anything, HOA drama never truly dies, because somewhere in some other neighborhood, another Karen is waiting, and when she shows up, you better believe we'll be ready. Lessons from Karen's downfall. The price of corruption and the power of accountability. Karen's story isn't just about an HOA gone rogue. It's a powerful reminder that unchecked power always leads to downfall. For years, Karen thrived on fear and control. She bullied homeowners, imposed unlawful fines, and even resorted to fraud just to maintain her dominance. But like all dictators, she made one crucial mistake. She underestimated the power of the people. This story teaches us that tyrants only succeed when people remain silent. Karen was able to abuse her authority because homeowners feared retaliation. But the moment they stood together, they took back their power. No bully, no matter how powerful, can withstand a united community. Another key takeaway is the importance of knowing your rights. Karen used legal intimidation to manipulate people, but she crumbled the moment someone challenged her with facts and law. Too often, people assume authority figures know best. But blind obedience only enables corruption. Question everything. Demand proof, and if something feels wrong, fight back. Lastly, Karen's downfall is proof that greed and abuse always catch up with you. She thought she was invincible, but her own arrogance led to her destruction. Power is not a right, it's a responsibility. And those who abuse it, they always fall. At the end of the day, the best way to protect yourself isn't just by avoiding bad people, it's by making sure bad people don't get away with it. Because when communities stand together, justice always wins.